Well, yesterday on the show, we told you about a vacant piece of land near the Royal Jubilee Hospital in South Saanich, which has been dubbed Kings Park by nearby residents. The land is owned by BC Hydro, but has been used as a park for decades. Now park users are concerned it could change hands soon, and they're worried about losing the green space there as a result. To find out more about the plans for the land and its history, we're joined by Ted Olnick, a spokesperson for BC Hydro. Ted, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, what's the history of this property on Kings Road? When did BC Hydro first buy it?
BC Hydro purchased the 5-acre parcel on Kings Road in about 1958, and we purchased the property as a site for a potential substation. And we do that across the province. We buy property for potential use down the road, and this was purchased in the 50s, knowing that the CRD, the Capital Regions District, would have some growth, and we'd have to meet it.
Now, just so we're clear, what exactly is a substation anyway?
A substation is where we bring transmission power into an area and then distribute it to the local residential housing, to businesses or anything like that. So because we can't have transmission line voltage brought into a residential area. So the substation helps bring it down to an acceptable voltage for residential customers.
Okay, so it's one of those fenced-off areas probably most of us have seen with all sorts of, electrical coil looking like things in the background and that sort of thing.
That's right. That's what a substation traditionally looks like. And of course, nowadays, you have substations like in Mount Pleasant where it's hidden, so you don't actually see the substation so much. It looks like a building, but there's a substation inside it.
And so that never happened. Why did BC Hydro not need the land in the end for a substation?
Well, we've always held it for the potential to be a substation, or the possibility of a substation. And when the BC Ambulance was looking at siting an ambulance station there, or leasing the property from us, we reminded residents why we purchased the property back in the 50s, that the potential still exists, that it could be a substation.
Okay, and in the meantime, it's become a bit like a park because it's not fenced off, and there's even a parking area, a walking trail in the trees, the grass is cut, and so on. Why has BC Hydro kept it open to the public?
Well, I guess being a good neighbor, we wanted to make sure, we had the property, but it didn't mean we were going to fence it off and barricade it. So we've left it open. We know there are trails that the public have used, local residents have used, and walk along it and used it for public uses. We've had people contact us. It still is, in essence, private property. It's not a park. It's not a Kings Road Park. It's a BC Hydro piece of property. We know it's precious to the neighborhood, but it is not a park.
Okay, and so neighbors are asking, is the property for sale?
BC Hydro looks at all of our assets, all of our property holdings, to see what's surplus to our needs. And we do that on a regular basis. And this, I'm sure, like any other piece of property, is something that we are looking at and reviewing to determine if it is surplus and is it something we can dispose of. And we always have rate pressures on us, and if there's anything surplus to us, to our needs, we'll dispose of it.
If it gets sold, then how would that work? I mean, does BC Hydro just act like any other property owner, like me, if I want to sell my house, or as a Crown Corporation, do you have to offer it to government or local municipalities or anything like that first?
As a Crown Corporation, there's a process we have to follow. First and foremost, we'd offer it for sale to other government agencies, see if there's any interest there. And then we go through the process where we would then offer it to local First Nations to see if there's an interest there. And then, of course, at that point, it can be made available to local government to see if there's any interest from them. Okay,
yeah, because that's another question that some local residents have is, will the municipality or the district of Saanich have a chance to make an offer? And it sounds like they might if First Nations and if higher levels of government don't want it. Is that right?
That would be the process we would follow. If there's no interest from provincial government agencies or from First Nations, then it's something that we would then offer to the local government.
But would this all be done in private, or would it be a public thing? Would people in Saanich be aware of it if there was some possibility of that?
Well, any negotiations we have with a third party would certainly, just like you selling your home, would be kept private until the sale is complete.
Mm-hmm. All right. So finally, then, is there anything else you can tell us about the potential sale of that property?
No, we're going through a process, and we want to make sure the property, if we do sell it, that it is available and and acceptable to the buyer. Thus, we dealt with the home that's on there. I mean, we're not in the property business. We still maintain the property. We'll cut the grass and make sure that there's no hazards for anybody or any of the public on the property. But at this point, we're just going through the process of making sure the property is acceptable for sale.
Well, Ted, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Ted Olenek is spokesperson for BC Hydro. It's 14 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is On the Island on CBC Radio 1.